can give you the list of attendees if you need that.
Sure, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I can do that.
So I think that Jean, right, if I remember right, Jean is just gonna basically ask everybody to hold their questions until the end, and then we'll open it up for conversation at the end.
Yep, I will go over like the housekeeping issues at the beginning.
Oh, okay, cool.
And then
Very
I'll turn it over to Jean, and
Okay.
then I'll have her introduce you.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, so that's it. My dog is going to start barking any second now, just so you know, because my significant other just pulled into the driveway. So
Okay, no worries.
she gets very excited when he gets home.
What kind of a dog?
I have a pit bull.
Oh, okay.
A very sweet and loving and gentle pit bull.
Nice.
Very spoiled.
Of course.
Yeah, but she's a great dog. And I also have 3 cats. So.
Oh, wow. So you got a busy household.
Yeah, we're a house full of animals. But
Yeah, yeah.
But you know, that's okay. They make life better.
Yeah, they do. They do. I lost both of my dogs, one from old age, and the other one, once the oldest passed away, the other one got a wandering bone and ran out in front of a car on me. And so since then, we haven't had any more animals, and all our kids are gone too. So all our kids are out of the house now. Last one being in his last year of college, and we just decided that because, well, especially since I took this job with Next Stage, that maybe it didn't make sense for us to get any more animals.
Yeah.
So, but I miss my dogs terribly. Yep.
And you can hear Coco in the background. They're great companions.
Absolutely.
But I know you must travel a lot with Next Stage, and that's hard.
Significant, yeah. I mean, it's not uncommon for me to leave on Monday and get home on Friday for dinner.
Yeah.
So.
God bless you. I don't know. I mean, I travel some, not right now, of course, because we're all kind of on lockdown. Hi. But I could never travel 5 days a week like that.
Yeah, it sounded really nice, when I first took the position, and not don't get me wrong. I mean, I like my time at home, and I understand the job had to travel, and I knew that going into it. But there are times, I guess, like with any job, it does get a little bit difficult being away from home, especially now because I own 2 homes. We have a house that we bought on the water not far from here, which we plan on being our retirement home. So now trying to maintain 2 homes and being on the road is kind of difficult. So
yeah, absolutely. Where do you live, Paul?
So I live in northern New York. So I don't know if you've heard of Potsdam, New York.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So I live in the Potsdam area. I live in a town called Norwood, just outside of Potsdam.
Yep. I have been to every county in New York State.
There you go. Very good.
Yeah, and we've worked with the clinics all over the state, so I've been there.
Very good. Very good. And you said you wanted me to say hello to Steve Morgan, right?
Yes.
And I did tell him hello, and he said hello back.
Oh, great. Yeah, Steve has been around for a long time.
Yes, he has. And then Jackie Gilmer as well. Do you know Jackie Gilmer?
I don't know Jackie. I might know her, like if I saw her face or something, but when you mentioned her yesterday, that's not a name that I was familiar with.
Okay.
Most of my interaction at Next Stage has been with Steve.
Okay. So what is your role, Carol, when you're not doing these web things? What are you doing?
So I'm with the Northeast Kidney Foundation.
Okay.
And I am the executive director. So we used to be part of the national organization, but we succeeded from the union, so to speak, back in 2011. So I've actually been with the organization since 2002. And I joined when it was an affiliate of the NKF, but when they started to change how they were doing things around the country, we felt it would be prudent for us to stay focused, directly on patient services. And so we chose to give up our charter and become an independent organization. So in that whole process, as things started to change in the NKF world, around the country, and specifically in New York State. We ended up branching out, and we now have 3 offices in New York State. So we have an office in Rochester and an office in Syracuse.
Oh, okay.
And we also, you know, dabble on occasion in the New England states as well, you know, based upon need. You know, when we were an affiliate of the NCAP, we were bound by their geographical restrictions.
Right.
What could be our territory, and we no longer have those geographical restrictions. So, you know, if a clinic reaches out to us in the New England states, we're happy to provide help, and we've done lots of education all around the Northeast.
Nice.
And a lot of patient advocacy work, and you know, so we're proud of what our little organization has been able to accomplish. So
very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, so we're still the only 2 on, by the way. Oh no, there's 4 people on now. Let's see who is on. So we have Marianne Newman and Arlene Clark on. Jean hasn't connected yet. Hi, Arlene, and hi, Marianne. I suppose I should unmute them.
Oops.
Hi, Arlene and Marianne.
Hi, it's Arlene.
Hi, Arlene. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Carol.
How are you?
I'm good. You can't see me, can you?
I cannot see you, no.
Good, because I just got out of the shower.
Well, I'm in my lockdown dress mode, so I've got sweats on and a sweater. So
Yeah, I do too, because when I get home from work, I take off my stuff right away, and then I get in the shower immediately, and then I just put my sweats or my pajamas on.
yeah, that's the way to go. We also have Patricia on, so I want to say hi to Patricia.
Hi, how are you, Carol?
Good, how are you?
Good.
And Paul is with us. I don't know if you can see Paul, but he's here.
Yeah, we saw Paul when you were talking with him.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Hey,
evening.
Paul. Hi, Paul. Thanks a lot for coming today.
Oh, you're welcome.
So we have around 12 people.
I unmuted it.
registered. So we have 5 of us on the line right now. So we're just going to kind of hang out and wait for everyone else to join us.
We're a few minutes early yet, right?
Yes, we're a few minutes early.
Yeah, they'll all be here.
When we start the presentation, I will have everyone muted with the exception of Paul. So just to let you know that, but I'll go over the housekeeping items a little bit more when we're getting ready to start.
Okay.
Hi, Joni.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You've been getting out and doing some walking and stuff, I see, with the dog, huh, Carol?
Yeah, you know, she's high energy, so she needs to get out there.
Yeah.
But he also keeps me moving, which is good. So,
Good, good.
I actually feel great, Marianne.
I'm glad to hear that, hon. Do you need anything?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Good. Well, as soon as this COVID nonsense is over, you and Jeannie and I have a date.
We do have a date. We're long overdue for our date.
Boy, I'll tell you. I'm really tired of this whole thing. I'm ready for it to be over,
Yeah, me too.
or at least taken down a couple of notches. Anyway, I mean, my hair's going to be gray by the time you all see me again.
Mine too.
I decided to just do it. My kids are like, what? I'm like, listen, I'm going to save myself $500 or $600 a year.
Yeah, it's
Well, I got to tell you guys that I was in the military many, many years ago, and I always kept a flat top. And so my flat top, I kind of looked like a chia pet, where my hair kept going up and up and up and up. And so finally we decided that we were going to try cutting it, and it was quite a process. My significant other, Lisa, I said, well, start with a bigger, you know, combs and clippers, and then kind of work our way smaller. And we kept saying, oh, that doesn't look right. So then we had to go to the smaller. We were just about down to the smallest one that we could get. And we basically said close enough. So I apologize for a really bad looking brush cut, but
Yeah, it looks good.
does it?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
My husband decided not to shave or cut his hair.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so
Okay.
he kind of looks a little bit like Santa Claus right now.
Hey, I have a job for him, Marianne.
Yeah, I know. I might have to talk him into it because he looks fabulous. And it's better because he looked like a vagrant for a while.
I'm gonna make sure all my phones are off real quick.
Yeah, it was just.
Because usually 5 o'clock, all my family starts calling and all those other things. So
I believe Albany Med just connected by phone. I don't know if that's Jean or some other folks, but I wanted to say hello to Albany Med. And Dana Brewster is on, so hi, Dana.
hey, Dana, how are you?
Dana's on mute.
Good, how are you?
Good.
Sorry about that. I don't know if I had you muted, Dana, but I apologize if I did.
Oh, no worries.
Can I ask who's on from Albany Med?
I am Carol. Got to mute.
Okay, so we'll wait a few more minutes. I have 6 altogether right now. Matthew Pittman just joined, so hi, Matthew.
Is Mary Ann Sorrell on yet?
Hello.
He is not.
Anybody else from Plattsburgh?
I'm trying to unmute people as they join.
Sorry, I just muted myself.
Hi, Matthew.
Hi, I'm from Adirondack Health at Adirondack Medical Center in Saranac Lake.
Jessica Thompson is on. Did we say hi to Jessica?
Hi, Jess.
Hello.
Hi, Jessica.
Hello there. Happy Nurses Week, everyone.
Happy Nurses
Happy
Day.
Nurses
everybody.
Week.
Happy Nurses Week.
Happy Nurses
Happy
Week.
Nurses Week.
Happy Nurses Week, absolutely.
So it's Nurses Day of Nurses Week of Nurses Month of Nurses Year. So it's the year of the nurse.
Wow.
Wow.
That's right. So it's a very significant.
Okay, I'm going to give it 1 more minute and then we'll get started. I just want to see if anyone else jumps on. We actually have 12 altogether, including Paul, myself, and everyone else. So we'll give it 1 more minute and then we'll go over housekeeping items. And then Jean will do the introduction of Paul and then we'll start the program.
I might mute myself because I have a 2-year-old daughter watching Frozen right now. So.
Oh,
I'm-
Carol, it's Jean. Can you hear me?
I can, yep.
Okay, great.
Okay, so I am, in a second, my screen is going to disappear and you're going to see the PowerPoint presentation. And then I will advance the slides as Paul needs me to click on the next slide. But just a couple of housekeeping items. Everyone should mute themselves while Paul is speaking. We're going to hold questions until the end. And if you have a question, you can submit it using the chat function or the raise your hand function. And then we will repeat the question and have Paul respond accordingly. The webinar is also being recorded, so we will be able to share the link. So for those in your clinics that weren't able to participate today, we will have a link that we can send out later on. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jean and ask her to do Paul's introduction, and I'm going to share my screen so you will see the PowerPoint presentation, but thank you all for participating today and for your patience with the technology.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our presentation this afternoon. And I want to say how much I appreciate Carol's assistance in being the audiovisual person and helping us with Zoom. As we all get used to these conferences, we've had many WebExes, team meetings, and now we are fortunate enough to have Zoom as a platform. So thank you for the Northeast Kidney Foundation for always collaborating with ANNA. We couldn't do our mission without the collaboration of the Northeast Kidney Foundation. So thank you, Carol, first of all. Second of all, I want to thank the chapter for getting together and helping us, and especially Jessica for getting Paul Jarvis to come and speak with us this afternoon. Paul works for Fresenius Medical Care. He is now doing home training on the next stage, and Paul will also explain how he is using the Teams platform to help with his remote teaching. So Paul has been working for Fresenius for about 18 months, Paul, I think you told me?
Oh, 18 months, yes.
Yes, okay, and prior to that, you worked in Ogdensburg, and you worked, tell me what your position was in Ogdensburg.
So, yeah, so it'll be 2 years for me for next stage, and prior to that, I worked at Ogdensburg for about 20 years in dialysis, where I did both acute and chronic for the majority of my time, and then the last 5 years I spent in home therapies.
Well, they were very fortunate to have you for 20 years because that experienced nephrology person. Were you a technician or a nurse, Paul?
No, I was a registered nurse.
You're a registered nurse.
Yes,
You know, an experienced person with 20 years experience is wonderful to have, and I'm sure Fresenius is very grateful to have you working on their home therapies program. So, Paul, would you want to say anything else further about your background?
No, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. The one thing that I will say is that, you know, going to home therapies after doing acute and chronic for so long, I was a little bit skeptical as to, you know, was this really going to be something I wanted? And were the patients really going to benefit from this therapy, and how easy was it going to be to train? And I got to tell you that I was really pleasantly surprised with the feedback that I got with my first few patients, with how well they felt, how glad they were to be able to get home. And it really kind of reignited my passion for dialysis and really kind of fueled my career. And I hope that hopefully by the end of our conversation today, maybe people will get a little bit of a glimpse of that.
That's great. Oh, without further ado, you can begin your presentation.
Okay, thank you. So good evening, everyone. So this evening, we're going to be talking about why more frequent home hemodialysis. And the caption here at the bottom, it says, because home is where the heart is. And like I just mentioned, I truly feel that a lot of my patients feel home is where the heart is. That's where they want to be. And if they're feeling better, if they're doing better, why can't we make this happen? And like I mentioned earlier, all the feedback that I was getting from the patients, it really fueled me and really wanted me to grow the home program. So it was really a catalyst for, I guess, where I am at today. So next slide, please.
And
So,
Paul, can I just interrupt you for 1 second? I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure that everyone can see the slides before we go forward.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Thank you. Sorry about that.
No worries. So why more frequent dialysis? The health benefits, the lifestyle benefits, the fact that it is designed for home. The System 1 is the only truly portable system cleared for home use during day or overnight while the patient sleeps. So when I look at this slide and I see the little machine sitting there on the end stand, it doesn't look intimidating. It looks fairly simplistic as compared to the conventional machines that we used to see the patients using at home when I first started dialysis many years ago. It is portable. The machine can be taken with the patient if they want to travel. And we do offer different therapy options where the patient would dialyze during the day or during the night. So it's a very flexible therapy. Next slide. So what are the major components? The first one we have here is a System 1 cycler. It is a simple interface, easy to use, like I mentioned, portable, like I mentioned as well, and dialyze when and where you want with 24/7 technical support. So the System 1 cycler, NxStage knew that patients were going to be taking this home, that there wasn't going to be a medical professional with them. So they really went out of their way to really try to simplify the machine. They use color coordination, they use pictures, and again, they really simplified that interface. The next thing is you can see that there's a handle on the side of the machine. The machine actually weighs 75 pounds. Recommended 2-person lift, but it is movable. And like I said, you can actually travel with the machine as well. And we'll talk a little bit more about that going forward. We also offer 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, technical support. So the patients, if they should have any questions, not medical questions, but any questions about the equipment, how to set it up, or to troubleshoot, tech support is really, really good, 1-866-NxStage, and they can reach out to a tech support person. So a lot of benefits there. The next piece we have is the PureFlow SL. Has an integrated dialysate mixing system with a simple plumbing connections. So when I think of the PureFlow SL, I think of basically a water treatment room in a box. So what we do is we take tap water in a patient's home, and then through deionization, a DI tank basically that you would find in the in-center water treatment rooms, through deionization, we take tap water and we make it into ultra pure water. So then that ultra pure water gets added to a sack. Now that sack has concentrated dialysate solution that can be made either 40, 50, or 60 liters. So the benefit of that is when a patient travels, they can't take their PureFlow with them. They use hanging pre-mixed dialysate bags that are 5 liters. But when they're home, they can use their PureFlow, and their PureFlow makes it so that they don't have to hang the bags, and there's a significant decrease in the amount of supplies that a patient would have to carry as well, or have in the home as well. So PureFlow really makes it a lot easier for the patient when they're in the home. As far as simple plumbing connections, there are simple connections that the patient can connect to their water system, either a cold water line or a drain line. And we also have quick connects that the patient can use to connect not only to the faucet, but there's also a quick connect for a washing machine as well. So just a quick rundown of the PureFlow. The next piece we have is the cartridge. So the cartridge is a simple drop-in cartridge that allows an easy wipe down disinfection, and it is disposable. So what I'll say about the cartridge is when you load the cartridge, I kind of think of it as like putting a piece of bread into a toaster. So you slide the cartridge in, you will close the door on the machine, you will spike a saline bag, you'll make one connection on the side of the machine and then press a key. Really within just a matter of just a couple of minutes, the machine is priming. Very simplistic, very, very easy for the patients to do. They tend to do this very, very quickly and learn it very, very quickly. So, excuse me. As far as wipe down and disinfection, all the fluid during the treatment is completely within the cartridge on the cycler. So there's no fluid that ever leaves the cartridge. What this allows it for us to do is that when the patient is all done, they remove the cartridge, they close the door, and they wipe down the outside of the machine. Because there's no internal flow of any fluids through the cycler itself, there's no internal disinfection that has to be done. So it's a lot less work for the patient and much more simple. And again, like I said, the cartridge can be thrown out right in the regular trash in the patient's home. There it is. So the next piece we have is Next to Me Connected Health. The Next to Me Connected Health allows for automated flow sheets. The cycler has and allows for a heads-up display of the cycler with context-sensitive help. So one of the things that I'll say about the Next to Me Connected Health is that the flow sheets. So the patients will do a pre-assessment, they will monitor the treatment, they will do a post-assessment, and then they will confirm the flow sheet after they've checked to make sure that they've completed everything. This is really, really beneficial, I got to tell you, because as soon as they confirm the flow sheet, the nurse can see it. When I was in clinic many, many years ago, in my old clinic, we would do a clinic visit with the patients once a month. They will be dragging in their flow sheets. It could be 20-some flow sheets. Some of them were filled out. Some of them weren't filled out. Some of them all tend to look a lot alike. I think that they were using the pencil in the car before they came in, to be honest with you. But now that we have these automated flow sheets, you're seeing the patient's flow sheet as soon as, like I said, as soon as they confirm it, and you're able to keep a much closer eye on the patient. So there's a lot of benefits to that. The cycler heads-up display is going to allow you to see their pressures in real time. So you're going to be able to see the arterial pressure, the venous pressure, the effluent pressure, all your flow rates, your time, and then it's even going to prompt you to do a blood pressure, and you're going to log your blood pressure during the treatment. So the heads-up display is that. The next piece we have is a context-sensitive help. So if a patient gets an alarm during the treatment, the alarm automatically populates up onto the iPad. That will show them will give them step-by-step instructions on how to reset the alarm, which is really, really huge for the patient. We do have quick reference guides and we do have users guides, but it eliminates the need for them to be looking all over the place. It's right there on their iPad, so it makes it very, very convenient. A couple other things that I wanted to talk about as far as Next to Me Connected Health is I had a patient at my old clinic when we first implemented Next to Me Connected Health, and she had a flip phone. And she said, Paul, there's just no way that I'm going to be able to use this iPad. And I assured her that she would be able to do it. I said, it's very, very easy to do. It's very simplistic. You kind of work from top to bottom, answering the questions. You can't go wrong. I know for today, for fact, if I approached her today and told her that we no longer were using Next to Me Connected Health and she had to go to paper flow sheets, she would lose her mind. So from a patient standpoint, very, very user-friendly. The second piece that I wanted to mention is that from a physician standpoint, we really, really found this beneficial at my old clinic as well, and maybe some of the other nurses who are on probably would agree with me, is that you can print off monthly reports from Next to Me Connected Health from the nurse's end. And you give this information to the patient, or at least I did, or not to the patient, to the physician for their monthly patient visits. And all the information from all the flow sheets would basically be there. And I know that Dr. Jaitley at my old clinic had told me at one time that he felt much more comfortable making clinical decisions for his patients based on what he was seeing from the reports that I was giving, as opposed to trying to leaf through all the patient's flow sheets and trying to put it together. So it's really, really significant at my facility, and I hope a lot of other people feel that way who use it. Next slide, please. So what the experts say. More than 90% of nephrologists said they would choose a home therapy for themselves if faced with dialysis, with home hemodialysis as the preferred option. Here we're seeing a picture actually of Dr. Michael Kraus. He's been doing dialysis for many, many years now. He's done all therapies in center and home, and his first choice would be home hemodialysis. Again, I'm referring back to my old clinic, but I got to tell you that this question came up one time with both of the nephrologists at my old clinic, and both of them, both who do all three therapies, said that they would still do home hemodialysis first. So if that's the case, I just question whether or not, or why more physicians are prescribing. I think a lot of it's just due to the fact that they just don't know enough about the therapy, and they're not as comfortable as maybe they should be. Next slide, please. So some of the benefits that we can expect with more frequent dialysis is significant cardiovascular benefits. Frequent hemodialysis associated with the following 12-month improvements. So 12% reduction in left ventricular mass, 20% fewer hypertensive episodes, a 7% decrease in systolic blood pressure, with a 32% less hypertensive consumed. And I got to tell you that the last one was really a big one for me. Usually within a week or two of patients being on more frequent therapy, we were noticing that their blood pressures were seeming to drop, and we were able to taper their blood pressure medications appropriately. I had patients who'd been on in-center therapy for many, many years with 2 to 3 blood pressure medications going home, sometimes on 1, maybe 1.5 or 2, but there was always a decrease typically in their blood pressure medications. So I really, really found that pretty significant as well. Next slide. So survival by treatment type. I got to tell you that when I saw this slide, I thought that if more people knew about this, it would at least maybe have patients or more people look into the therapy. And so we'll just kind of run through these real quick. So in-center HHD, we can expect a 40% survivability over a 5-year time frame. Peritoneal dialysis is 50%, with more frequent HHD being 58%. So almost a 20% improvement as compared to in-center. I really, really like those odds, not only for, God forbid, my family, but for my patients as well. I was just really blown away by that. And I really think that if more patients knew that, they would at least be more inquisitive. The other thing that's not added on here is nocturnal dialysis. The percentage that it was told to me today was 73%. So 73%, which is almost equivalent to what somebody who'd had a transplant. So I found that that was very significant as well. So next slide, please. So what patients report and what studies confirm. So this is a really, really great slide, a lot of good information. So if you had to approach a patient on why they might want to do more frequent hemodialysis, and we'll just kind of run through these really quick, and then I'd like to make a couple of comments on them. So 87% improved post-dialysis recovery time, very, very significant. Improved appetite, more energy and vitality, improved sexual function, more likely to receive a transplant, the ability to work or attend school, and improved sleep quality. One of the things that I first realized when I first started training patients was usually within the 4 to 5 days, patients typically started feeling some better. Some people it was significant, some people it was much more subtle, but usually within 4 to 5 days, they were feeling better. They weren't feeling as run down. A lot of my folks, when I was doing chronic dialysis, we kind of related it to kind of a roller coaster effect. They would come in, they would get their treatment, they would feel wiped out, they would go home, they would go to bed, they would get up the next day, they would start feeling better by later in the afternoon, only to have the next day go back into dialysis again. So it was really this kind of roller coaster effect. With more frequent dialysis, they typically just don't feel that way. It's definitely flattened out significantly. I was in a clinic in Southern New York when we were doing Experience the Difference. And I had a lady come in, she was starting her 4th day on HHD, or more frequent dialysis. And she told the PCT who I was training to do the treatments on the floor that it was the first day that she hadn't had to go home and go to bed after her treatment. And it was really empowering for the PCT to hear that. And it's not uncommon. And I know that some of the folks who were training HHD or were on the meeting today could probably agree with that. The other thing is the improved appetite and more energy and vitality. I got to tell you, that wasn't uncommon as well when I was training patients for their dry weight to increase. Part of the reason is because they're better dialyzed, their appetite improves, and they have more energy, and they're out and they're kind of building their muscle mass back again. So it's not uncommon for them to increase their dry weight. So I found that to be pretty significant. I got to tell you, I didn't have a lot of conversations on improved sexual function, but for some people, I know that's pretty significant. The other piece here on the 14% more likely to receive a transplant. I guess after the conversation about from a cardiology standpoint, the benefits from that, and then everything we hear on the slide, it would just make sense that these patients are feeling better, doing better, they would be more likely to receive a transplant. The next one here is the ability to work or attend school. With a flexible therapy is about being able to do it on time frames that fit best for the patient, either during the day or at night. We find that a lot of these people, not only because of the flexibility of the therapy, but the fact that they actually feel better, they're more motivated to go back to work. And I had quite a few of my patients actually do that when I got them home. They went back to work or went back to school. So that was really empowering for me as well. The last little piece that I just want to mention briefly is improved sleep quality. And one of the reasons that I liken to that is that there is a significant decrease in restless leg syndrome for those folks who are doing more frequent dialysis. So they just tend to sleep a little bit better. Next slide, please. So what next stage patients say? My therapy doesn't define me. So my impression on this is that basically they're not defined by that, or that they have actually taken control of their therapy. The therapy no longer controls them. They're in control of their therapy. It definitely empowers them. So what this lady said is, I am the wife, the mom, and the partner again, not just a patient. So very, very much basically saying that she's kind of able to take control of her life again. The next one here is, I have energy and I haven't had it in a long time, which just speaks to everything that I was just talking about. Both of these ladies were doing nocturnal dialysis. We're going to talk a little bit more about that here in just a few minutes. Next slide, please. So this slide is slightly outdated, and we just had a piece on this the other day that I saw. And I'll elaborate here a little bit. This one shows that 14 million treatment strong with 8,000 plus patients. Right now, I'm allowed to say that we have 10,000 plus patients on the therapy right now and growing. And that equivalent, or basically that would make it about 17.5 million treatment strong. And with today's climate and with COVID and everything like that, and there seems to be a big momentum shift to home therapies, I got to expect that these numbers are going to get even larger. Next screen, please. So what's new in home dialysis? Actually, this lady right here is not only is she a patient, but she is an advocate for Next Stage. Her name is Vanessa. She is an amazing lady. If you ever get a chance to listen to her, I strongly recommend you do. She has a great story, great person. Next slide, please. So big win for patients, introducing solo clearance for Next Stage System 1. The option to dialyze at home without a care partner during waking hours. Allows for greater control and ownership of self-care, increased independence, more flexibility in treatment and scheduling, lessening the feeling of reliance and or burden on friends and family, which is absolutely huge for the folks that are doing solo. Avoid the feelings of helplessness and that are commonly experienced by patients cared for in center. So in September of 2017, Next Stage got clearance for solo. And I got to tell you, probably like a lot of people here on the call, was pretty, for me, it would have been pretty big stretch to think about sending some of my patients home on solo dialysis. And I don't think it's necessarily right for every patient, but I got to tell you that looking back on it, I kind of had to take a step back, especially after traveling around New York or upstate New York and Connecticut area and listening to people who are doing solo now. And in fact, my old clinic has actually started to do solo as well. There were several patients that we had talked to that we had denied the ability to be able to do home hemodialysis because they didn't have a care partner. And I really, really feel bad because we're just talking about all the benefits that they could potentially do and people taking their lives back. I really kind of feel bad about it afterwards, especially if it was my family member or something like that. I would at least want them the opportunity to try, at least give them the opportunity to fail. And so since we've been started doing solo dialysis, and we'll talk about this a little bit more on the next slide, I think that would probably be a good time to go to the next one, is Next Stage put out a survey. We knew that people were probably doing dialysis at home independently, even though they've been trained to go home with a care partner. So the survey showed that 85% of the patients were doing dialysis still presently with a care partner, but 15% of them came clean and actually said, hey, we are doing it solo. So Next Stage says, well, okay, if we know that these patients are doing solo dialysis, what can we do to keep them safer in the home? So there's a couple extra added features that we add to the machine for safety purposes. There's a little bit more criteria as far as the training and making sure that the patients are being able to troubleshoot the machine and basically kind of go through all these things that we would require a care partner to assist them with and being able to do it independently. And so again, a couple of extra added safety features and a little bit different for the training and a little bit more scrutiny as to who you're putting on the therapy. And last but not least, they would have to sign a waiver. Next slide, please. So therapy options that fit the patient's lifestyles. So we've talked about this here, but I'll elaborate a little bit more. So home hemodialysis during waking hours, either with a care partner or with solo. So solo, again, can only be done during waking hours. Solo is not done while a patient is sleeping. Nocturnal dialysis that we see here on the other picture, nocturnal dialysis is done while a patient and a care partner sleeps, but nocturnal does require a care partner. Again, like solo dialysis, there's a couple extra added safety features that we use, things like aneurysys devices and those kind of things. The patients don't train to do nocturnal in the center doing nocturnal dialysis. What they do is they train to do standard daily dialysis, and then the nurse, again, there's some extra added training things that we would have to look into, whether or not they need a heparin pump, those kind of things, because the treatment times for nocturnal dialysis are typically anywhere between 6 to 8 hours, but they might need a heparin pump. So there's a little bit extra training. Again, a waiver would have to be signed because again, with solo and nocturnal, there's some inherent risk there. So they would sign this. But again, the benefits of doing nocturnal dialysis, a 73% increase of survivability over a 5-year time frame, I think is something we truly have to consider. So again, solo, nocturnal, and dialysis basically with a care partner. A lot of flexibility here. Next slide.
Sorry.
There we go. Okay, so the next slide we have here is advancingdialysis.org. And what is advancingdialysis.org? It is basically an independent website. It is not a next stage website. So basically what we have here is the top nephrology thought leaders in the US and Canada basically contribute to this website. The information that you can find here is clinical evidence on the newest information being on the intensive hemodialysis. We're talking about dialysis, home hemodialysis 5 days a week, 5 to 6 days a week. Again, a lot of clinical evidence here. There's a lot of articles, really, really good articles, insightful charts and figures and author commentaries and slides. So there's really great information. And if you had to give a talk or a presentation, there's a lot of good information that you can get for advancingdialysis.org. Next slide, please. So why next stage? Good question. Why next stage? Hopefully we're learning why. Next slide, please. So why choose next stage for more frequent home hemodialysis? So the top 5 here. Number 1, better patient outcomes, both clinical and lifestyle benefits, which we've been talking about up to this point. Secondly, it's the most prescribed home hemodialysis machine in the US. Third, simple, flexible, and portable therapy, all of which we've just been talking about. Number 4, though, here is good for the earth, 50% reduction in carbon footprint. So like I mentioned earlier, when I first started hemodialysis many, many years ago, they were doing home dialysis on one patient, and they were using a conventional in-center machine, an old Baxter machine with a portable RO. A lot of labor intensive, a lot of moving pieces going on here, and a lot of work for the patient. Not only that, but we all know that ROs use a significant amount of water. The pure flow, believe it or not, for a week's worth of dialysate being made for a patient, it would be the equivalent of a patient or a person doing 1 extra load of laundry a week. So it basically uses a very, very small amount of water. Not only that, you're only running a very, very small machine as opposed to the RO and the conventional machine. There's even less power being used. So lastly, it's a therapy beyond home into the skilled nursing facility. So like some of the other folks that I'm sure they're on the meeting today who've done in-center dialysis like myself, a lot of our patients, at least a lot of my patients at my old clinic, would come from nursing homes. So these patients would get loaded onto a stretcher, get loaded into the ambulette, would get driven to the center, would be put into the waiting area until they were called out into the treatment floor. Now, we're all from Northern New York, so we all know how crappy the weather can be and how long of a day these patients have, because then when they're all done with their treatment, we're going to load them up and do the complete reverse. Very, very long day for these patients. But more frequent dialysis via next stage is being done in a lot of skilled nursing facilities. In fact, it's growing. And one of the things, obviously, that these patients, they don't have to leave the comfort of their home. It gives them more time for rehab, more interaction with their peers and maybe their family members. And they don't have to leave the facility, which is really, really huge for these folks. The last thing I'd like to mention is that not only is it being used in the next stage machine is used in skilled nursing facilities, it's also used in critical care with a couple extra features, obviously, but it does CRRT and those kind of things. And in this climate, I know that they've actually been working a lot more with a machine in those areas, especially in New York City. Next slide, please. So when it comes to home hemodialysis machines, you have options, but the most prescribed home hemodialysis machine in the US is obviously the next stage machine, and we mentioned that earlier. But I really like this slide because this slide shows the size and the scope of the machines, basically breaking it down. So if we look at the next stage cycler and we compare that to the conventional in-center machine, it's literally about a quarter of the size of the machine. A quarter of the size as compared to the conventional machine. And even when you add the pure flow to it, it's still significantly smaller. So really, and again, this will also mention that there's a significant amount of less water used, but I'm not going to go over that anymore. But you guys kind of get the idea that much more user-friendly compared to the old days when we used to use conventional machines and RO machines in the patient's home. Next slide, please. So patient stories. If you go to the Next Stage website, you can find a lot of these patient stories, and I find them to be very empowering. If I ever need to get motivated again, I go in, I look at some of these stories, but more often than not, when I'm going to these clinics, I'm typically hearing them. If you don't mind, I'd like to tell you another one of the stories from my clinic, or actually from my early days, just starting out with Next Stage. I think I've only been with Next Stage a couple of months. And again, I was in a different clinic in Southern New York, and I'd walked into the clinic and I'd met the folks here before, but they said, oh, good, we have our Next Stage person here. We have a patient who really, really wants to talk to you, or we have a patient who's been on Next Stage who really, really wants to talk to you. And I kind of took a step back because I was concerned that maybe they had problems with their cycler, or maybe they had problems with supplies. And she really didn't know why the patient was coming in, but I said, absolutely, I'm willing to talk to them. So we met in the conference room, and the lady came in, and she with open arms and gave me a huge hug. And she said, Mr. Jarvis, I just want to thank you so much for giving me my life back. And first of all, what do I say? I didn't feel like I had a hand in any of this, but it was because I worked for Next Stage. And she went on to tell me her story. Her story was that she had been on in-center dialysis for about 4 or 5 years. And the home dialysis unit was actually attached there. And so she was aware that they offered home therapies, but she had misgivings, like a lot of patients, about whether or not she'd be able to do the needles, because we know for a lot of people, usually that's their first concern is, how am I going to do needles? How am I going to access my catheter? Those kind of things. So that was one of the reasons she said that she didn't initially look into it. And then she was worried about, the machines, and from a technical aspect, was she going to be able to handle that, her and her husband? But after 4 or 5 years of being on the therapy, her and her husband were both retired, and she really didn't have a whole lot of energy. I mean, she didn't feel really, really bad, but she didn't feel great either, and really never felt like they were able to enjoy their retirement up to this point. And one of the things her husband did was, her husband had retired, like I'd mentioned, but he was a jazz musician. He was part of a jazz band that used to travel all over the States, and he couldn't do that anymore because he was her care partner. And so she kind of took a leap of faith one day and said, you know what, what's the worst thing that could happen? I try home hemodialysis. If I don't like it, I go back to in-center. So she took the leap of faith. She gave it a try. Believe it or not, 4 or 5 days into the treatment, she noticed that she felt better, like she had more energy. And she said that just kind of fueled her fire even more. And she, this really motivated them to finish their treatment. So they finished their training. They finished their training in about 4 to 5 weeks. And the pact that they made with each other when they went home is, if they could do it and do it well for the first month, they were going to book a cruise. And the cruise was a dialysis, kind of like, or not a dialysis, it was a jazz festival cruise. And they went home for the first month. They did great. They booked a trip on the cruise, came back, and I had just seen them just shortly after they had gotten back. And they were so over the moon. Everything went excellent for them. They were able to treat when they wanted to. She had the energy to participate in everything that was going on. They were just so over the top, and they really just wanted to share their story. They have now become an advocate and are doing really, really well still. So I just felt that was very, very impactful, what she told me. And then to seal the deal, the husband came up and shook my hand, and he said, I just want to thank you for giving me my wife back. So I got to tell you that was very, very impactful for me, and just continues to fuel my fire. So these are just the many stories that I hope that you'll hear for people that you encourage to go on home therapies. Next slide, please. So Next Stage, simple, flexible, and portable therapy. This is everything that we've just been hearing about. Next slide, please. So 10 steps closer to home, a brief overview of the System 1 cycler. Oh, this is not part of that. Okay, apparently this is the first time I'm seeing this, folks. This is basically showing you the steps, the simple steps of setting up the System 1 cycler. Wow. So this is Vanessa setting up the machine. Very nice. Okay, wow. That was not in my slides when I was practicing it. So thank you very much for looking at the slides. So one of the things I will say is that, again, it's very, very easy to be done at home. And we just saw basically a high level view of Vanessa setting up the machine in the patient or in her home. So here we're seeing a picture of the cycler in the patient's home. And it looks like we're missing just a couple of pieces where it's taken a little bit long for it to load. But what you should be seeing here in just a minute or so, in the two bottom rooms on the left-hand side, it looks like a living room, and then just to the left of that, a closet. And with that closet, beside the closet, both of these pieces, you would see the cycler and the pure flow. So what I will tell you is that I've helped many, many patients make decisions as to where they were going to set up in the home. There's a lot of flexibility because the drain line and the water line are 40 feet long, allowing you to connect to several different places within the home. But one of the things I found with a lot of my patients is that there was definitely a gravitation towards trying to put the machine into a spare room. The advantages for that is you could kind of control the traffic in and out if people showed up while you were on the treatment, or if you had pets or those kind of things that you wanted to leave outside of the room. So again, a lot of flexibility is where you can put it. I've been in many different people's homes. I've been in their basements, finished and unfinished, washrooms, what seemed rooms almost like a closet, which I don't necessarily recommend, but many, many different places. But ultimately, they've got to do it where they're going to be most comfortable. So we just try to help them through that journey as to where the best place would be. Next slide, please.
There's all the stuff you were looking for.
Oh, we missed one. Can we go back to the, we're going for back one more. There we go. So while you sleep. So now we actually see a picture of the cycler and the pure flow in a patient's bedroom. And it says while you sleep. So we know obviously this is talking about nocturnal dialysis. And we're seeing it in the patient's bedroom, but just adjacent to the bedroom, we see the bathroom. So it's not uncommon, at least in my experience, for a lot of the patients to be able to run their water lines through the adjacent wall into their bathrooms where they can easily connect to the vanity. Again, we have the quick connections that can be done for plumbing underneath the vanity, as well as the quick connects where they can connect directly to the sink. So again, nocturnal dialysis, basically you're going to be doing that in the bedroom that we see here. Next slide, please. So while you travel, so we talked about the fact that this machine is very portable. It's 75 pounds. It has two handles. We recommend a two-person lift. The other thing that I will mention is NxStage does offer a soft carry case with wheels. So if a patient is traveling, they can use a soft carry case. What I will say is that if the patient has decided that they're going to travel, one of the things you're going to want to make sure that you're doing is reaching out to customer service at least a month in advance in order so proper steps can be taken so that we can be sure that the supplies get to where the patient is going to be heading. The next thing that we want to consider is if the patient's traveling by car and they're going to make maybe many stops on the way there, do they have adequate supplies for them to be able to do their treatments while they're heading to wherever it is they're going to be. I've had patients send me pictures from their hotel rooms with a cycler sitting at the bedside stand. Again, all they need to be able to do a setup in a hotel room or a place like that, they need a power outlet. They need their hanging pre-mixed dialysate bags that I said came in 5 liters. And then we give them a waistline extension that is 20 foot long that they're just going to run into the bathroom, either into the toilet, the shower, or the sink. Just got to make sure that it's not sitting in standing water. We all know this. And away they go. Then when they get to wherever they're going to be, say it's Florida, I've had patients travel from New York to Florida and from New York all the way out to Washington in a vehicle. But when they get to wherever they're going to go, we make sure that they have adequate supplies while they're there and adequate supplies to return. So that's traveling, basically the car. Next slide, please. And away they go. Very good. Okay, so the next piece we're going to see here is basically patients traveling on an airplane. So Next Stage also offers a hard case. The hard case, and with the cycler in it, basically is 100 pounds or just under 100 pounds, I believe. The long and the short of that is that the airline can't charge any extra for the cycler being loaded onto the airplane. Not only that, they can't refuse it. So another thing, if the patient is traveling and say that they're traveling either on a cruise or say they're traveling outside of the country, we're going to need a little bit more time to be able to coordinate that. My recommendation would be at least 3 months in advance. Again, allowing Next Stage to be able to set up all, or make sure that they're covering all their bases and making sure that they get the supplies. And we do have the ability to get them the supplies when they leave the country and go to places like Europe and those kind of things. So again, traveling via an airplane is a non-issue. Next slide. Okay, so this is just the clinical reference in regards to the slides. And last but not least, we have the final slide, which is risk and responsibilities that obviously we have to show anytime we're doing anything like this. And I just want to thank everybody for attending. And I hope that you have a little bit more understanding of, at least from my perspective, why you'd want to do more frequent HHD. And I think hopefully you're walking away feeling like you know a little bit more about why you might want to encourage your patients to try the therapy. And I think we can open it up for any questions anybody might have. Thank you, everyone.
Can you hear me, Paul?
Yes, ma'am.
Quick question about the next to me, the iPads.
Yes.
The company provides those, and what would the cost associated with those be? And is it internet or cellular service that the patient needs in order to use those?
Okay, so all great questions. So the iPad is not provided by Next Stage. The iPad is actually provided by the center. And the second question for that is, and so I'm not really sure exactly how much they are. Again, price varies depending on what model and so on and so forth that you get. My old clinic used to use the iPad minis. But I'm going to tell you that there's probably going to be a little bit more of a shift with some stuff coming out here in the near future where maybe you wouldn't want to use the iPad mini anymore. You don't need the latest and the greatest, but I think that it's iOS 10 or 11 is probably what we're going to need at some point moving forward. So again, those are provided by the clinic, not by Next Stage. The second piece is that it is not necessarily cellular. It is usually typically Wi-Fi based. And for those patients who maybe don't have, Wi-Fi or in their home, Next Stage does offer a hotspot, but I would double check with your policies because some people or some clinics are not allowed to have the patients use Next to Me Connected Health in the patient's home if they do not have Wi-Fi. So I think that answered all of your questions.
Thank you.
Paul,
Yes.
it's Jean Culinary.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I have a mask on, so it's like muffling everything. Can you explain how the dialysate that's made in the Pure Flow gets from there into the filter? Like I know how to do CVVHD when I do CRRT, but I can't visualize how the dialysate is getting to the filter.
To the filter from the Pure Flow?
Yeah.
So the Pure Flow actually has a pump, and the Pure Flow actually pumps the dialysate up into the cartridge on the dialysate inlet line. So,
oh, okay.
Yep. So that's a good question, Jean, actually. So with the Pure Flow, one of the things I don't know that I mentioned, maybe I did, was that with the Pure Flow, we can make 40, 50, or 60 liter sacks. So it offers the patient the opportunity, depending on the volume for their therapy, they might be able to use that sack more than once. So there's an outlet line, obviously, and that outlet line actually has 3 outlets on it so that the patient can use it more than once as long as their volume allows them to do so.
Thank you. That was good. I was in conversation with one of the centers in New York City, and they were gonna have to make their own dialysate for CRRT because they ran out of bags. I don't know if they ever did. They were gonna generate their own dialysate.
Wow, that's awesome. So I got to tell you, Gene, believe it or not, I was actually doing, one of the things you mentioned was also, and maybe I'll mention that here at the end, was I've been doing a lot of virtual trainings from my basement. So I actually have all the equipment set up downstairs, and I'm using a helmet camera to try to do some virtual education. And we were actually asked to assist some of the critical care nurses on how to basically use the home machine that if there was some excess in some of the clinics, that could they use the home machine. So we kind of worked with them hand in hand on talking about some of the differences. So it was pretty amazing the fact that they were able to use some of these machines in New York City, which I hear was just kind of an awful scenario. But yeah, I was glad that we were able to help out.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks,
Hi,
Paul.
Paul. Paul, it's Mary Ann Newman. Hi.
Hi there.
Hi. I want to thank you very much for coming tonight. This was a fabulous talk. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
And I need to ask a question about the life expectancy. And I apologize if you said this during your talk, but I had to step away for a second and I may have missed it. I was really surprised to see the difference in the life expectancy between PD and home hemo, in that home hemo was higher.
Yes.
Can you talk about that for a second? Like, why is that, and what has your experience been?
Yes. So I don't want to get in any gray areas for next stage, and I don't want to sound biased. What I will say is that I did a little bit with PD, and I did a little bit with HHD, or obviously quite a bit with HHD. But I got to think that, at least from my experience and my experience alone, for what little it's worth, folks, is that I just found that more often than not, the patients just seem to be better dialyzed. Their fluid management seemed to be a little bit better, and that for those two reasons alone, at least in my opinion, again, for what little it's worth, would be the difference of why it might be slightly higher for home hemodialysis. The other thing is, when we talk about nocturnal dialysis, we're talking about patients dialyzing 5 days a week. In some cases, they're even doing 6 days a week for 6 to 8 hours at night. These patients are incredibly well dialyzed, and they're like, in a 5-year time frame, we're talking about 75%, as opposed to 58% with HHD and 50% with CAPD. So pretty significant numbers.
Sure,
I was really.
that's
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
what PD has been saying for all these years about why PD is so much better, right? Because you're 24-hour dialysis and do it every day. So
Yes.
I think that's pretty impressive information that a lot of people don't know yet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I was, like I said, when I first saw that information, I'm like, if more people knew this, if more patients knew this, wouldn't they at least be a little bit more curious as to home therapies? Maybe it's not the end all, but at least if they knew that information, wouldn't it at least make them be a little bit more curious? I think it would. So I used to show the information.
Yeah, that's really good information. But I have to extrapolate to my experience a little bit with CRRT. When you put those patients on CRRT, their phosphorus plummets. We even have to put a formula up that supplements their phosphorus. I wonder if their home hemo does such good dialysis on them that their phosphorus is lower, and maybe that correlates with the decrease in mortality, because we know that increased phosphorus is very dangerous for these patients in terms of cardiovascular mortality.
So I got to tell you again, this is completely my experience and conversations. It is not Next Stage's view. I have to make that very, very clear. At my old unit, Dr. Seibman would actually echo that to a certain degree. Now, we're not doing CRRT, but he felt that more often than not, the patients who were more frequently dialyzed, and Dr. Seibman's philosophy for the longest time, anybody who does home dialysis, the only way they're going to do it is 5 days a week. They are not going to do it 4. Everybody does 5 days a week. But because of that, he found that more often than not, as compared to in-center when they transitioned home, they just didn't need the amount of binders that they were using when they needed in-center. So that might be very well be a part of it as well. But again, that's not next stage. That's not next stage. That is just my personal experience.
Yeah. Plus with the less hypertension, the less left ventricular hypertrophy, and all those other bad things, and the cardiac remodeling that goes on in relation to that, it all kind of makes sense.
And the other thing to kind of piggyback on what you said as far as the phosphorus issue, patients who go on nocturnal therapy, typically they're not on any binders whatsoever.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yep. Yep.
There aren't any questions that came in through the chat box. So I just want to ask if any of the participants have additional questions to go ahead and raise your hand. And get Paul while we have them. Okay. I don't see any other hands raised. Oh, wait a second. Hang on. How do you disinfect the DI? Matthew Pittman is asking, how do you disinfect the DI?
So I'm sure, Matthew, you're probably familiar with water treatment rooms asking this kind of question. So basically in an in-center situation, you have DI tanks, and those DI tanks are set to do a back flush, where basically it blows all the residue off the beads. That's kind of the way I look at it, is blows all the residues off, and then it goes down the drain. So they kind of regenerate themselves, so to speak. But with the Pure Flow, we have what we call a pack. And the pack is put in, the pack will last no longer than 12 weeks, okay, as a maximum. But it's also affected by the water hardness. So obviously it may not last 12 weeks depending on how hard the water is. But what happens is once the little DI tanks inside that pack become overwhelmed, the patient will get a notification that the pack is exhausted, and then they just put in a new one. So you don't have to disinfect it. There's no back flush. Basically, all you do is slide a new pack in, throw the other one out.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Carol, do you want to wrap up, or do you want me to wrap up?
You can do. I'm just checking to see if anyone has their hands raised, but nobody does, and there are no more questions in the chat box. So I think that we can go ahead and wrap up. Jean, take it away. You're the president of the ANNA, so.
Yes, as president of ANNA, I'm in a powerful position here. I really want to thank Paul for taking the time to do the presentation this evening. It's very much appreciated. And your expertise, your 22 years of experience as a nephrology nurse is really shows itself in the presentation. I want to wish everybody happy National Nurses Day. As Mary Ann Newman said it so well, it's the year of the nurse, 200 years since Florence Nightingale. It is Nurses Week, and nurses have been cited throughout the country for what they have done for our patients with COVID, and really for what they do for patients every day, including what Paul is doing, patient teaching. He's taken his patient teaching and adapted it to do it by video, so it's really amazing, and I salute you for that, Paul.
Thank you, ma'am.
So that having been said, I appreciate everybody's attendance here. I want to remind everyone that we will have a fall conference in November. It will be November the 1st. We're certainly hoping it's going to be at Rivers Casino if they will book us in there. Right now, they're holding on bookings because of the crisis that we're experiencing. And then Carol, the fashion show for the Northeast Kidney Foundation will be on the 8th. Is that right, Carol?
That's correct. Also at Rivers Casino. So the casino is holding space for us right now for November 1st, but they can't send a contract until their staff is back to work. Everyone is furloughed right now through June 30th.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So we're hoping that we're going to be able to get together in that venue because it's really an exciting venue, and we're going to have a lot of exciting topics. We've had no lack of topics for the fall conference. So are there any further questions before we sign off? Okay, Carol, again, Carol LaFleur of the Northeast Kidney Foundation, thank you very much for your help, and Paul, and everybody have a good evening. Thank you for
Thank
attending.
you, everyone.
Thank you,
Stay
everybody.
safe.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Good night. Happy
Bye-bye.
Nurses Day.
Happy Nurses
Happy
Day.
Nurses Day.
Good night.
Good night.
Hey, Carol,
Oh, yes,
can you just send me the names of the people who attended
I
at some
will.
point? Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
And it'll
All
have
right.
their emails in it as well, if you want to reach out to them.
Now, is there any way I can see this recording later on?
Yeah, there's going to be a link, and
Okay.
I will send you the link.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks so much. Have a great night.
Okay, thank you now.
Bye-bye.